from now. But I want to say that the National Resistance Movement is a great party. It's a solid party. It is the only party in Uganda which has got over 72,000 cells, meaning that this mass arrangement gives the party the strength and the capacity to galvanize, to mobilize all the citizenry to support our gallant, going to be flag bearer, General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And I want to tell you that 2026, as we begin this journey, he is going to be nominated tomorrow in Kololo in the early part of the morning or mid-morning. And I want to tell you that we have organized Kololo because Kololo will be an area that can accommodate the multitude of people that can receive him. Because bringing them here to the chairman of the Electoral Commission's office, Professor Tango Doi, may not be appropriate for the multitude of people that are going to accompany him. But let me hasten to add that the National Resistance Movement is a strong party. Strong, and that's where we belong. Because collectively together, we can be able to work and build a strong foundation. And as you note, the foundation of the National Resistance Movement is anchored on 4 pillars ideologically: patriotism, okwagala ensi yo, to love your country; Pan-Africanism, okwagala or to love, kupenda watu yako, the people who are black, to ensure that we have a common market as Africans and the black people, to determine self-determination of our direction, strategic direction, as the African continent and the black people. The third point is social-economic transformation, to address the foundation that and the challenges our people face. For example, as a mass party, we have universal primary education. We have universal secondary education. We have universal health care. Our children now are being immunized and are able to live beyond 1 year, 5 years, which was not possible in the past regimes. This is the fundamental change we are talking about. We are talking about social economic transformation and anchoring on areas like universal secondary education and primary education, so that we can bring and invest in the human resource values of our people. We are addressing areas like poverty, unemployment, especially among the youth, service delivery, improvement also on areas like tackling equitable distribution of wealth. That's why you have PDM, improved roads that Honorable Musa Echweri is talking about. By the year 1986, when the National Resistance Movement took over power, we had less than 1,350 kilometers of tarmac. But today, we are north of 6,000 kilometers of tarmac, and we are now connected border to border to all our neighboring countries. This is fundamental. I also want you to note that in terms of electricity, by the year 1986, we only had generated capacity of electricity of 62 megawatts. Only 2 dams, 2 generators in Owen Falls Dam were working. Today we are over 2,047 megawatts and 5 dams built. That tells you that in terms of electricity, we now have excess electricity, and the country is looking at opportunities of going into other areas of power generation, like nuclear, so that we can now be able to power Uganda and generate effective capacity. By the year 2040, the National Resistance Movement is planning on generating close to 50,000 megawatts. This is the plan. So I want to tell you that we have a bright future. Uganda is a very strong nation, and we now culminate to the key point, which is the fourth pillar, which is democracy. Democracy is a foundation that is ignited first internally, and that's why you have internal democracy of the party. You can see for the first time, we have held a number of elections from 1996, when we had the first democratic elections where a president was elected directly. It had never happened in the history of Uganda. In 2006, we now brought in, under a constitutional amendment, the multi-party dispensation. I want to tell you, comrades, today, as we culminate and galvanize the democratic process of this country, which has been a journey, I want to tell you that we have been able to exercise our democratic right. And why am I gunning for the leadership of the national resistance movement at the apex? This is what you need to note. The national resistance movement is the only political organization which has got the capacity to generate an organic, systems-led, persons-led, and revolutionary-led leadership. The national resistance movement is a revolutionary party. So anybody who takes the movement for granted, you need to recall the words of our great leader, General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, at the steps of Parliament in 1986, when he was very clear and unequivocal and stated that this is not a mere change of guard. This is going to be a fundamental change. The national resistance movement has been in power for 40 years now coming, 2026, next year. And we've been able to ensure that in these 40 years, a country which had been unstable constitutionally and had a turbulent history. If you look at it now, by 1986, up to date, you will note that the national resistance movement has defeated 14 major fighting groups or rebel groups, like West Nile Bank Front Part 1 and 2, West Nile Uganda Rescue Front Part 1 and 2 under Gambuuze, Lakwena Holy Spirit Movement in the northern part of the country. She was defeated here in Magamaga and crossed to Kenya. You remember UPA, Uganda People's Army in Teso. You remember the group of Itongwa here, Chirimutu. You remember the group of Nalu, which eventually formed with the Salaf Muslims and formed Allied Democratic Forces when they signed an agreement in Goma. I want to tell you that we also had the Lord's Resistance Army led by Kony, who paralyzed the whole northern part of the country and northeastern later. Kony was fully defeated. And I want to thank, as I said earlier, Musa Chweru here, who was in boots and stood with the people and I to fight as patriots to defend the Constitution of Uganda. We had Karamojong, who had over between 60 to 80,000 guns. In Karamoja, 10% of Uganda's land area. Those guns were more than the guns in Kenya in the army, police, prisons, and police and put together. What am I telling you? Uganda now, under General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, has been able to gain stability. And President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, our revolutionary leader, has brought total peace to Uganda from the north to the south, east to the west. Uganda now is exporting peace to countries like, under our Pan-African core values, to Somalia. We're in South Sudan. One time we're in Central African Republic. Our boots, our gallant forces are now in the DRC Congo to ensure that we bring peace and stability not only to Uganda. So therefore, General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni is not only center of gravity in Uganda, but the entire region of East Africa. It will be therefore unfortunate for anybody to take this government and this leadership for granted. It is therefore important for you to note, comrades, that even those who have now metamorphosed and come into the leadership of this country, like these political parties, and I want to tell you and take a message very clearly to those, the national resistance movement is going to win the elections 2026 hands down. These political parties are weak. They are divided. They are not organized. And I want you to get the foundation. It is these electoral processes that we're going through that give us the strength as the party to exercise political hygiene and elections in the party internally. Then we can now get the best players to go and play at the national level. No other party does that. It's only the national resistance movement. Take note, and the message must be loud and clear. We are now going to determine a much more formidable direction for the country. And I would like to thank President Museveni, who has committed the country and his leadership to fighting corruption. 2026, 2031, his main agenda is going to be fighting corruption, talking about East African political federation. We must bring these economies and be able to sublime the divisions that were caused by our colonial masters. I want, therefore, for those of us who have come forward, for you to note, we are not just actors. We are not in the charade of those who are in the theater. We are not theater goers. I've seen some people who are standing with me, and I want to tell you, bring your best foot forward. I want you to note that we are not sponsored by foreign masters. I see some of our comrades are being sponsored by foreign masters as puppets. We are solid patriots. We are solid Pan-Africanists. And I want you to reject those who are agents of or the prophets of doom, whose interest is not only to come and acquire power for or leadership for the good of the party. I think you must now interrogate their interest. Why do some people want to be at the highest level of leadership where there is commitment? And I want you to note that our mobilization capacity is undoubted. In 2020, when we had the national elections, and it was the peak of COVID. At the peak of COVID, President Museveni did not suspended campaigns because he did not want people to be infected. And we lost a few lives, and I would like to thank him for that leadership. But I went round with comrades against the wave of NUP in Buganda in the eastern, and I want to tell you that using my own resources, including a helicopter, I was able to go around the eastern part of Uganda, and we were able to get 97 members of parliament, NRM, out of 141. We were able to get 25 NRM independent leading members of parliament. NUP, despite the wave, got only 2 members of parliament, Honorable Nambeshe from Bugisu and the lady in Jinja. Jema got only 1, Honorable Basaliro, in Bugiri. FDC got only 11 members of parliament. That shows you that the leading and the majority leaders and the leadership of the party in the country is mainly from the east. That shows you the strength, the capacity of mobilization. And we're able to, the president won in eastern. We were actually second to the west in voting for the president. That you cannot remove a winning captain from the playing football ground. If you have Ronaldinho or Ronaldo, ngasamba mpira bulungi, bamujja mpira. This is Ronaldo. Leave the other amateurs. The others are amateurs. They have never even been chairpersons LC1. You have never been chairman LC2. You have never been chairman LC3. You have never been chairman LC5 or 4. You don't climb a tree from the top. You climb a tree from the bottom. What am I telling you? I started leadership as Secretary for Defense LC1 Bugorobi in Akawa Division. Secretary for Defense LC2 Bugorobi. LC2. I became chairman LC2 Bugorobi. I became vice chairman Nakawa Division. I became councillor Nakawa Division. I became chairman, acting chairman Nakawa Division when Honorable Mulenga was appointed by the president to be in the Court of Appeal. Then I became a member of parliament. I was the vice chairman of the Committee on National Economy. I was a member and a vice chairman on the Committee of Presidential and Foreign Affairs. I was an effective Minister of Health. Then I put all this aside and said, now, I told the president, I'm not going to stand as a member of parliament. I am going to stand as a vice chairman of the National Resistance Movement and concentrate on the mobilization of the party. That's why I was able to give you the fruits we were talking about. You cannot be a member of parliament. I see some people want to be members of parliament. You want to be also a minister. You also want to be, some of them, I've seen them, they want to be in the Central Executive Committee. How greedy can you be? Some people have picked forms to be chairpersons, members of parliament in some of the areas. I think they say you cannot be a master of all. So my message to you and to the comrades is that the communication to you is to understand the foundation of this great mobilizer, who can be able to donate and give a party, our party, a helicopter to campaign all around the country and be able to mobilize without support from the secretariat here where I'm seated. That shows you the full commitment of Wagazi Bwegwanga, upendo wa ya inchi. I can speak all the languages in Eastern Uganda. I can greet you in Ateso, greet you in Lumasaba, and talk to you in Lugisu, talk to you in Kopsabin, talk to you in Japadola, talk to you in Lusoga, in Samia, in Lugweri, in Luganda, in Swahili, in Runyankole, in Rutoro, in Runyoro, in Acholi, in Lugbara. I can go to Koboko and talk Adinyo. I am a nationalist and a patriot and a great Pan-Africanist. That's why I'm the chairman of the Pan-African Movement Uganda chapter. I believe family, comrades, I believe family in my full support and my total support for General Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And I want to assure you that 2026 and beyond, as we galvanize towards the elections, I want the country to give full support to the father of the nation, the father of Africa, of East Africa, the father of Africa. This is the only living legend of the African continent, who I want to tell you was able to house African National Congress, the military wing of MK Nkonge Wasizwe, in Uganda when all other countries had rejected. He stood with the people of South Africa. He has stood with the people of Rwanda. He has stood with the people of DRC Congo. He has stood with the people of South Sudan. He has stood with the people of Somalia. He has stood with our brothers and comrades wa ndugu zetu kutoka Tanzania. This is a living legend, and I want to assure you, comrades, my stand is to ensure that Uganda, and under the national resistance movement, continues to galvanize. We are not going to negotiate ourselves out of power. We're going to continue mobilizing. We're going to continue consolidating. Victory is ours. Either they lose or we win. There will be no surrender. Asante sana. Questions?